Because I'll drink like 3-4 litres of water a day.
Why? And there's sugar in the water?
No. Hello and welcome to the DPNBA podcast. My name is Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boff. Mr. Boff, my man. How are we?
I'm alright. No diabetes. No diabetes.
So did you record that or not?
No, I did record that.
Alright, sick.
Yeah,
that'll make for a great intro.
We did get the diabetes chat.
Alright, sick.
Yeah, that was scary though. Because it was about 10 days in between when I first had that. We got the blood test and then like a day later the doctor called me. Like, he called me at like 8 o'clock in the morning. He's like, man, we need you to come in for some more tests. I was like, fucking sick. He's like, yeah, you've got the indicators for type 2 diabetes. And then I do the test, and then he's like, yeah, I'm going on leave. I won't be back for 10 days. So I booked in the appointment for 10 days and then had to wait.
Yeah.
And initially I was like, yeah, it's all good. I don't actually have a very high sugar diet these days. Like I used to, but I don't anymore. So it'll be fine to cut out sugar. And then I was with Rachel Dupre. Shout out Rachel, friend of the pod.
Shout out.
And
where's she calling from? Japan?
And she was like, yeah, it's not just sugar. Like it's...
I mean, like the sugar and beer.
It's
and
complex
stuff.
carbohydrates. You won't be able to drink beer.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there with my can of Carlton Draft, my little red tin, and I'm looking at this precious object, thinking, Am I never going to be able to have this again? Am I going to be drinking the pure blonde ultra low carbs for the rest of my life?
Hans Super Dry.
Yeah. And luckily, I don't have diabetes. So I wish the same for you.
Yeah. Or I've got long COVID. Or maybe I'm just overreacting. I've just been really sleepy. Because I've been tired and then I go to bed and then I'm just like, oh, one more video. YouTube video.
What time are you going to sleep?
Oh, like 1 or 2.
Yeah, that's probably why. What time are you waking up? Like 7?
6:30.
Well, if you're going to sleep 1 or 2, you're getting maximum 5.5 hours sleep.
Yeah.
So,
man, you should be a doctor.
Yeah,
that's
about it.
That's some advice.
No, I've got a friend in Perth.
The doctor,
Lewis. Yeah, the free doctor. And my friend in Perth, Lewis, was a sleep scientist before he decided to study medicine. So maybe I've picked up some sleep tips and tricks, like get more than 5 hours sleep a night.
Well, I'm usually good at it, but I just think since this week of COVID, I've just like...
For what it's worth, I've had multiple people that I know who've had COVID say that they were either really fatigued or like really mentally foggy for like a few weeks after. So I feel like you're...
Yeah. Well, I saw this dude on Twitter. Now this is the source. No, he writes for some Indiana blog, but like he had it for a week and then was like, oh man, I still feel pretty crap. Like how's everyone else feel? All of his replies were like, oh man, like I'm out 3 months later, I'm out 2 months later, like I still can't get out of bed. And it's like, whoa. But then again, like I don't know if they're vaccinated and stuff. And then this podcast is probably going to get a fucking strike somewhere by saying the V word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on ivermectin, bro.
But let me go back to that the joke I was going to make that's now not timely anymore. But Hans Super Dry, you're better off cutting out the middleman and pissing directly in your mouth.
I've never had Hans Super Dry, but
Good on you.
That doesn't surprise me that you're talking about it that way. I tell you what, Pure Blonde is actually pretty good.
Have you had the Better beer? Like it was made by
it's called Better beer.
Yeah, it's made by those TikTokers. It's like, low carb, full taste sort of
I
stuff.
don't watch TikTok.
Yeah, but it's made by just like influencers, and the whole thing is like, it's great to get on the beers, but fuck, they're bad for you. So it's just like a low carb beer, but the whole thing is making it taste normal, and it tastes like 99% like a Carlton Draft.
And how much money you pay for it?
The same, normal. Yeah.
Sounds too good to be true. My mum always told me if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Well, these guys say if it's too better to be true, it's better.
If that's their marketing technique, I wonder how they're going.
Yeah, it's not. We'll workshop that one.
Yeah, we can workshop that.
Hey.
Nah, to be honest, I'm happy with my little red tins.
Yeah, I thought you were into the fruity stuff, mate. The plums.
No, I am. Don't get me wrong. Like I love a sour every now and then.
What about a Bolter XPA?
I do enjoy a nice crisp, refreshing Bolter XPA.
This is a 2-time best craft beer in Australia.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. You sit at a beachside pub in WA in the height of summer,
WA with you.
drinking Bolter out of a tap. you know, life's pretty good. So drinking Bolter out of a shoe, as we do in the West.
Are these from WA?
Are they Gauge Roads?
No, that would be Gauge Roads. This is Bolter.
It would be. Well, it's definitely not tinned in WA. Anyway, this is great. This is great radio. Gauge Roads do a really wonderful beer called Little Dove, which is one of those sneaky ones that's about 6.5%. And you have a couple of those, and you're like, something's happening now.
Yeah,
faster than things are happening faster than I was prepared for.
Well, speaking of things happening faster than they prepared for, that's a brilliant segue to my next funny joke.
Have you made a funny joke yet?
I got a friend who was telling me that every time he's got this guy that, like, you know, they would go out and have a couple of beers, or, like, you know, at each other's house and stuff, and they're drinking and whatever. And this dude, like, his whole thing was every time he got a new beer, he would have a shot of Aldi brand Malibu. Okay. So, like, just as they're drinking, like, he'd just be having a few beers, and he's like, "Mate, you alright? Like, you seem like you're getting pretty pissed." And he goes, Yeah, I'm having a shot with every beer." He's like, "Why are you doing that?" And he goes, "True." Just catches himself and is like, "I'll just drink the beers now."
Aldi brand Malibu as well.
Yeah, it's called like Sea Breeze or something.
The Aldi...
I've used it before.
Yeah, I'm not a Malibu man, but the Aldi...
It's filthy.
The Aldi knockoff Stella Artois is actually really
What's
good.
it called?
I think it might be called Saint Etienne.
Yeah, it's
really good.
It's just like...
It's like $29 a slab.
It's just like the Ashes 2009 cricket game on the PS3, because they didn't have the naming rights to any of the characters, so it was like Michael Clonk and then like Mitchell Jamison instead of Mitchell Johnson and stuff. Fucking love LD.
Oh, that's some Pro Evolution Soccer shit right there.
Yeah, is that the same deal?
Yeah.
Oh no, but they've got the rights to Ronaldo, but no other sport does.
No, I don't know. About that.
No.
They've got random teams, like they got Juventus.
Yeah, no, but FIFA calls Juventus like zebras or something.
Yeah. Football Manager calls them zebra.
Yeah. That's strange, man.
Yeah, zebra under 23.
It's 2022. Just cop it.
Yeah. Just do non-exclusive rights deals so you can sell the rights to more people.
Yeah. Hang on, we got a dude picking up a delivery.
All right. Well, we're back after we're back after a short delivery man inspired delay, but this has probably been enough waffling. I know you probably have more funny jokes up your sleeve, and I'd hate to deprive the listenership of more Han Superdry classics, but we probably should move on. Now, probably the biggest development in the Deep 2 extended universe over the last week is the first installment of the Deep 2 Film Room, which is a video essay series that will be launching as an accompaniment to our already extensive suite of Deep 2 content. So the first video is up now on our YouTube. You can also find it at thedeep2.com. Can't believe it's that simple. Basically, you knocked it out of the park on this one.
Oh, thanks.
You absolutely knocked it out of the park on this one. It runs for just a tick under 5 minutes. It's about Jalen Brunson and the Mavs and a potential sticking point leading up to the trade deadline and free agency. It was just really wonderful to watch. And I think early reception on social media and in the YouTube comments was quite good. So I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. I'm pretty proud of you for a first attempt at this sort of thing. So listeners, get onto Facebook, get onto the website, get onto YouTube and give it a watch, because it was truly a sight to behold.
Yeah, appreciate it, Dante. But the film room, something that I've wanted to do for a little while, and then thought, fuck it, I'll just do it. And I gave myself a topic that I knew was going to have a very hard deadline, and then pretty much just made myself work on it because I was super worried that we were going to run out of time. So I'm like, shit, I have to do it. So I planned to do this 2 weeks ago, but here we are. Here it is. And yeah, like, we've all seen the sort of video essay style sort of stuff on YouTube, and like, we all watch The Ringer, and we all watch Thinking Basketball, and we all watch Coach Danny Liu or whoever it is, and stuff like B-Ball Breakdown. So we sort of want to do it in that same mold, but also have our own artistic flair. Now, we've just launched the pilot episode, but Dante, and to any of the listeners at home, if you can think of something that would make them better, if you've ever watched some of those video essay style things on YouTube and thought, hey, this would be great if we did something, just let us know, because we're open to ideas, and let us know if there's anything that we can change in the editing or the script writing, and hopefully we can just sort of evolve this content alongside what we do, and we're not going to have as strict a schedule as we do for the podcast and sort of loosely for the articles. It's just sort of whenever there's a topic that would work great in a video medium, we'll look to do something there. And yeah, go to YouTube, and it's probably saying something if Dante's telling you go to YouTube, because he never goes on YouTube.
I'm only loosely acquainted with the concept of what YouTube actually is. But no, seriously, if you've got a spare 5 minutes, which of course you do, your average phone time.
Listen to us talking about beer for 10.
Your daily phone time is guaranteed somewhere between 3 and 6 hours. So you've got, like, you're not kidding yourself. You've got 5 spare minutes. Jump on the Deep to YouTube and give it out. Give it a look. The other thing that's happened in the last few weeks is that we've got a new contributor on board writing articles for us, who is Matt Parnell, friend of the pod, friend of the program, who's got his first piece up now on thedeep2.com. Can't believe it's that simple. You can also access that piece through our Instagram and through Facebook, where it's been shared. But this piece is on Warriors draftee Justinian Jessup.
I didn't even suggest this topic, but I love it.
It's literally just like organic Warriors content, which you've seeded into the bones of this endeavor. Organic Warriors content. But Matt's written about Justinian Jessup, who's a Warriors draftee, second round pick, I think 51st overall a couple of years ago, who's been stashed in the NBL, and we've seen a few NBA draftees, LaMelo, Josh Giddey, play really ball-dominant roles in the NBL and then jump to being higher draft picks with the ball in their hands in the NBA. Jessup is doing something different, where he's basically, a role player, and there's a pretty unique opportunity for him to carve out a role for himself in the NBA based on his work in the NBL. So Matt's piece was really, really interesting. So jump over to the website or our socials and give that a look as well.
Yeah, I mean, fucking so much housekeeping at the start. But Matt, if you're listening, I know you've been dealing with Dante to write the article, but I really enjoyed reading it. I thought it was a great piece. So I can't encourage people more to go give it a read. And like I said before, so happy it's just organic Warriors content. And I mentioned the name Justinian Jessup on this pod about a year ago, and you're like, what a weird name. Soon to be household name, but
could be a household name. It was already a household name for me because of his
JJ.
No, well, just because of his association with the Roman Emperor of approximately 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, nice.
In my household, we talk about Justinian regularly. Where does he rank among all of the Roman emperors?
Is that what the month July was named after?
No, funnily enough, it's actually named after Julius Caesar.
I love asking these questions to you, mate. All right, well, just to wrap up all the housekeeping, that probably should be at the end, but just thanks for enjoying. Dude, that sounds a lot like a wrap up.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode.
we have a pod to go. So I'll quickly say, tell a freaking friend. We're making so much content here. We love making it, and hopefully you guys like watching it. And I saw Spotify. You can do star ratings on Spotify now. That is a new thing. But I mean, I don't really know what it does, but give us 5 stars, I guess. It seems like all these podcasts out there, like, oh yeah, if we get X number of 5 stars, we'll get X number criteria. But I don't know what it does. Do it if you want. If you in that 3 hours you're on your phone.
Yeah, just fucking do it.
All right.
Seriously, just fucking do it. Tell a freaking friend. Just do it for us.
All right.
Do it for the boys.
Let's move on to another group of boys in the Dallas Mavericks. So now we'll talk a little bit about the Mavs. Now, obviously spurned on from the Jalen Brunson issue that I spoke about on the Deep 2 film room. And it's sort of looking like the Mavs were sort of set up for success for a couple of years. And obviously they did the Trae Young trade, the Trae Young for Luka Doncic trade. And it's like, whoa, Johnny Nelson has just built this, massive, awesome superpower to be. And then he made the move for Kristaps Porzingis, and Donny put his name in the ring. He put his hat in the ring for Al Horford and Kemba Walker in free agency, and did all these things. It's like everything was looking promising. Yes, they missed out on those free agents 2 off seasons ago now, but everything was going up. Luka's only fucking 10 years old. All this sort of stuff. And now you look at the team, and they've obviously got the zinger, and they signed him to a max contract, and they got Tim Hardaway Jr., who he was sort of just thrown in the deal to make the money work, but he was actually part of the asset move. But you've got Tim Hardaway Jr. that just happened to be a really good shooting guard and just a great shooter that you need next to Luka Doncic, but now you've had to pay him, and now his contract's like, okay, instead of just being a nice little find, he's now a nice find that's paid appropriately, so it's not actually, really that rare anymore. And then, I have a Maxi Kleber fetish that has sort of worn off for the past 2 years, but Maxi Kleber is just a big guy now. Dwight Powell, while he might have been explosive once upon a time, injuries have sort of nestled him back into sort of backup big territory, and it's sort of like, even before saying the name Jalen Brunson, who is quite comfortably their second best player right now, where are the Mavs going? Like, they seem kind of directionless, and this is on top of everything that happened this past offseason with Harala Bob Vulgaris, losing Donnie Nelson, losing Rick Carlisle, bringing in Jason Kidd, who has his own warts, just to put it lightly. This is like, this isn't looking very good for the Mavs, who it looks like they couldn't miss. What do you think?
Well, I think we've seen the ceiling on a Mavs team that's peak Luka with an average zinger and like quality to average to quality role players, and that ceiling is first, maybe second round. Not good enough to compete because every time in the last 2 seasons they made the playoffs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they've run into the Clippers, and it's been hard fought series, and the Clippers have gone on to make deep playoff runs, but they haven't been ultimately good enough to get over the line. And none of those Mavs teams struck you as if they did manage to get through to the second round, that they were going to be a genuine...
Maybe the bubble, but they're going to get squashed by the Lakers in conference finals anyway.
Yeah, so I think that this is probably as good as Porzingis gets. You know that it's as good as Hardaway gets. You mentioned Kleber and Powell have kind of like stagnated. You feel like it's probably as good as Dorian Finney-Smith gets. So all of these dudes are in their late 20s. All of them are being paid like appropriately. So it's an expensive team with no path to, immediate success. I think that hindsight's 20/20, but the mistake is probably extending Hardaway Jr.
Yeah.
This offseason, because they signed to a four-year $80-odd million contract. So you're paying $20 million to someone who's essentially a one-dimensional scorer. He's a great shooter. He's got some moves off the bounce. He never passes, and he's a bad defender. But you're locking that in on $20 million. Would you have been better just not matching that, taking a step back this season, being the 8th seed? Just seeing how far you can get with Luka, and then maybe going and moving forward with a bit more flexibility in trade, a bit more flexibility in cap space. Because now, that this is something that you get into in the Brunson film room episode. But if you extend Brunson, it's going to be a contract that's probably identical, at least, to Hardaway Jr.'s. So.
I think we can safely say, barring an injury or something, it'll be 4 for 80.
Yeah,
and they can afford that, but it'll obviously mean they've got no more wiggle room.
Well, they can afford that, and then you're in the cap. You're in the tax as well. So you can afford that for next season if you're prepared to pay the tax. You can't afford it for the season after unless you're prepared to pay double the tax because of the increase in tax penalty. And okay, so the Mavs started out really slowly. They're currently 29 and 23, which is good for the 6th seed. But in terms of what I was just talking about, positioning them amongst the elite of the conference, they're tied with the Nuggets, who are missing 2 of their 3 best players, and this is essentially the fully realized version of the Mavericks. Like, Brunson's playing his career best. Luka is not playing his career best.
He's come around recently.
Porzingis is having an okay season. So this is it.
I think this is it for Porzingis. Yeah.
The Clippers are a couple games behind. The Lakers, if they can figure it out, hypothetically next season, the Clippers will definitely be better next season when Kawhi's back. The Lakers will definitely, will hopefully be better later this season, whatever. So you're talking about realistically this version of the Mavs as like the 6th, 7th, 8th best team in the conference. which for a team that's gonna be paying the luxury tax is not really good enough. So, unfortunately, the only way to kind of step back from that is to shed salary.
Yeah.
And shedding salary at this point means shedding quality players, although maybe the quality players aren't quite as quality as we might have expected. But I guess it all really comes back to, if you want to put on the fully 2020 glasses, it's just that Porzingis hasn't been what they expected from him when they traded for him.
Yeah, and so Tim McMahon went on Zach Lowe's podcast a couple of days ago to talk about Dallas and I think Utah, I can't remember. But in the Dallas section, he was saying, like, you're in this situation, like you're stuck, but what do you want to do? Like, do you want to sit in your hands and re-sign Jalen Brunson, and then by re-signing Jalen Brunson, you can't do anything else? Like, you're not going to be able to trade Tim Hardaway Jr. or Kristaps Porzingis for equal value. Like, if you want to trade the Zinger today, you probably have to attach an asset to do it. And one good thing about the Mavs is that they own all of their future picks, apart from next year's, which is going to be sent to New York in the Porzingis deal. So, like, they have, 24, 25, 26,
so was it 2021 and 2023 picks?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Top 10 protected in 2023.
Sure.
Yeah.
In my head, I had that it was 23 and 25, but it makes more sense that it was 21, 23.
I can't remember.
No, I think
you're right. So it's like, you've got these avenues where doing nothing means you're going to be stuck with this team for at least 2 more years, because the Zinger's going to be getting paid $36 million in the 23-24 season. Or you could say, like, blow it up and retool, right? And, like, retooling is, like, the hardest thing to do, because you rarely ever see it happen. And when you do see it happen, it's in these extreme circumstances where Golden State will be bad, and they'll be bad enough to get the second pick in Big Jim, and then also just capitalize off trading D'Angelo Russell for Jonathan.
Yeah, but it's
Kuminga,
easier
right?
to retool when you have 3 All-Stars and all of them remain on the roster.
Yeah, and, like, you're looking at what the Clippers are doing right now, and whether the Clippers will come out of this with some positive value, or whether they're going to trade Marcus Morris and Serge Ibaka for something positive. That's much smaller. But retooling with getting off the Zinger or getting off Tim Hardaway Jr. would actually take an asset to get off them. So it's like, there isn't really retooling, because you're paying people.
I don't think that Tim Hardaway Jr. would take an asset, because I think maybe I've made this exact point in an episode a few weeks ago. But Tim Hardaway Jr. is the exact sort of player that every season contenders come sniffing about. There's a contender every season who says, we want a bit of wing scoring with size, a bit of shooting before we head into the playoffs. $20 million is big in the context of this team's capped out and not that good. But $20 million for Tim Hardaway Jr. is, like, essentially pretty fair value right now. For the in the exact same way that teams are sniffing around Eric Gordon and his $16 million contract this trade deadline. Someone not in the off season, but coming into the postseason saying, "Damn, like, we've got a good defense, but we need a pressure release valve to take the pressure off our star." Tim Hardaway Jr. is exactly the sort of player. So I think you could get off him and get cap relief and, like, a moderate asset back.
Yeah.
Porzingis, you definitely need to attach an asset. So if I'm thinking about them retooling, I'm not even considering them getting rid of Porzingis, because I just don't think it's realistic.
Yeah.
I think he's here for the next 2 seasons after this one.
I completely disagree with you on Tim Hardaway Jr. I think every year you see these guys sniffing around for these trades where it's like Eric Gordon, but I don't think Eric Gordon's getting traded whatsoever. If he does get traded, it's for a second round pick. Now, Houston said that they want a first round pick, and if someone says
it's giving a first round pick.
Giving a first round pick for a guy on the wrong side of 30, getting paid $20 million, and, like, yes,
getting paid $20 million and who's locked up for, like, another 2 years.
But, like, if you're a contender,
isn't Eric Gordon, like, 34 as well? Like, Eric Gordon's not only on the wrong side of 30, he's, like, old.
He's nearly on the wrong side of 40. These guys, it's too hard to trade him.
33.
If you're a contender, you're a contender because you've built a team that's ready to compete and can be very good because you've built this team. And by building that team, you have guys on the roster and who are getting paid appropriate money that are good at what they do. So you're not going to give up a major piece who's getting paid around $20 million, like a Joe Harris. Maybe they would give up Joe Harris. That's a bad example. But you're not going to give up your 5th best player, because your 5th best player is probably the reason why you're good.
No, but hypothetically, say Utah needs a player. You're not giving up Joe Ingles' expiring contract,
they might now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Every year there's a team that has
But I don't think they'll do that.
The Suns this year, we've got Dario Saric's $9.5 million cap hold that we can just put into any trade. We can get halfway to Tim Hardaway's salary just by including Dario Saric. He's not playing for us. He's not giving us any value. The rest of it would be cobbled together with contracts who aren't playing for you. Every season, there's going to be 2 to 4 teams that are in the playoff hunt that have enough contracts that aren't really giving them anything. Think about
I just think it's too hard.
Throwbacks like back in the day, like all the teams that had Gerald Wallace's absolutely bloated contract floating around in their roster. It's like, well, we took this on, for the asset, and now we've just got $13 million to play with. We can just do whatever the fuck we want with that. I think there'd be a market for Hardaway Jr. if they made him available. Not talking about like, oh my god, we're going to get 3 firsts. Yeah. I think you'd get contract filler. You get a contract. Hopefully it's an expiring one that you can just say like, all right, wash our hands of this after the offseason, and like maybe a heavily protected first round pick.
Yeah.
But you really just want to clear the space, take a step back, and then have a bit more capacity to move forward. Because at the moment you can't move anyway because you're completely locked into this squad.
Let's loop back to that point. So you've obviously got, you can sit in your hands, re-sign Brunson and hope that the team gets better, or you can retool, because I don't think there's another pathway to go. I think there's only 2 pathways here. And what do you do if you're Harrell Bob and you're in the era of Nico Harrison? What do you do here?
Hey, at 12 Don Yang, do you like hearing the down low on all your NBA and basketball content?
Hey, at Will Conkin on Instagram and Twitter. Don't you mean the lowdown on NBA and basketball content?
No, I mean the down low, because that's our show, The Down Low,
where we give you the lowdown on everything NBA.
Check out The Down Low NBA on all your podcasting platforms like Spotify, Apple, or even Google Podcasts.
Google has podcasts?
Yeah, I didn't even know that either, but now you know, so go and get it in your ears.
You got to re-sign Brunson. You have to re-sign Brunson, and that's going to cost you $20 million a year. You retool. You try and move Hardaway. You try and sell Powell and Kleber. You just try and clear $30 million in cap space. You cop a bad year next season. You say, okay, we're going to be 35 and 47. That's going to happen. We're okay with that. We're going to use our draft picks. We're going to maybe try and swing a trade if there's something available, get ourselves in somewhere. Maybe if Bradley Beal is still around, we'll try and get in with Porzingis and assets. Something like that, like try and get like a high level trade. Otherwise, you just take a step back and say, maybe if we had our time again at spending this money, we could spend it in a different way. We could spend it in a way that's not, the way that they've done it. I think part of the reason why this has failed is because as you get better as a team, if you don't have multiple elite talents or like super quality role players, they've obviously got one elite talent. Porzingis is neither here nor there, and their role players aside from Brunson are not super quality. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. is a good role player. The rest of them, whatever. Dorian Finney-Smith is probably a good role player. The rest of them, whatever. If you don't have those like super high quality role players, the best way to keep things going, ticking over as your team gets more expensive and older, is to supplement it with draft picks. When they have had draft picks, they haven't drafted very well. Obviously the 21 and the 23 are gone in the Porzingis trade, but since 2018, they actually haven't drafted any good NBA players. That was when they picked up
everyone they drafted for like last year is off their roster now.
That was when they picked up Luka and Brunson 2018. They didn't make a selection last draft, and in 2020 they had 2 selections, which was Josh Green, who I think was taken about 20, Australian Josh Green, who hasn't really panned out, and in a roster building absolute fucking catastrophe, they traded away Seth Curry, who's now fucking been lighting it up in Philadelphia, for Josh Richardson, who was terrible for them and is now fucking averaging 8 points a game in Boston. So they traded Seth Curry, and then with the 31st overall pick, they drafted Tyrell Terry out of Stanford, who profiled as Seth Curry's exact replacement. Yeah. And not only did he barely see the floor as a rookie, but they actually waived him after his first season.
Which says something about it.
Well, which says something about it. I think he's now on like the fucking Memphis G League team or something. Like the Memphis Hustle. So not only did you trade away Seth Curry in a straight up swap for a dude who is miles worse than him and who's not even on a better contract. You just gave away the better player. The asset that you used to try and replace him, that you told yourself, we don't need Seth, we've got Tyrell Terry, turned out to be absolute rubbish. So since this team's core was established, essentially, 2018 and then in 2019 when they traded for Porzingis, there's been no quality young players added, which is not really sustainable unless you have those top level players. Like Golden State can do it without adding quality young players because they've got fucking 3 All-Stars. Even Golden State has added quality young players, and like someone like a Jordan Poole.
But even not with Golden State, because obviously they've got the Moses Moody and the Jonathan Kumingas who are a little bit up there, and say what you want about Jordan Poole, I'll say some great things, but like
but Jordan Poole's proven himself to be like an absolutely essential rotation player. Kuminga and Moody, like your team would be no different if you didn't have them this year.
Yeah,
if you had veteran X instead of Kuminga, who's averaging 6 points a game. Like Kuminga looks really good, but fundamentally this season wouldn't make a difference.
But I'm talking in terms of making a trade. Like if Golden State wants to make a trade, they can just slap those guys in there and the trade just looks much better. And obviously I write for Nug Love, and I was writing an article about what the Denver Nuggets could trade if they really wanted to make a swing for Bradley Beal or some guy like that. And yes, you've got matching salary in Jamal Murray, or you've got matching salary in Michael Porter Jr. next season. But Denver can chuck on all their picks just like Dallas can, but Denver can also say, here's Zeke Nagy, who's a really good three-point shooting big who might be able to defend on the perimeter. Here's Bones Highland, who some Nuggets dudes are calling the next Damian Lillard, right? Completely wrong. But,
are they?
Yeah. They're calling him backup Damian Lillard.
Someone needs to step in here.
But you've at least got those guys who don't look bad. You've got those guys that when you throw them in, what's Bones Highland worth right now? Probably a first round pick, right? If you're really
a good first, I reckon.
Yeah, good 20th pick, right?
Lottery protected.
Sure. Well, you're much higher on him than I am right now. But you know what I mean? You've got, not only do you have the picks to give, because everyone, if you do everything right, you'll have the picks to give, but you've also got the players who are worth a couple of picks that you can throw in just to buff up the deal. Dallas has none of that right now. What's Josh Green worth? Probably a second round pick.
Yeah, definitely not a first.
Yeah. He has showed nothing.
Golden State to some extent is a redundant comparison because so much of what's happened with Golden State over the last 6 years, from getting KD to this retool rebuild, is just once in a blue moon kind of stuff. When as a team with a 2-time MVP that's won 3 championships, had a down season and then just had the chance to make the second overall pick. It literally that quality of team making that higher pick hasn't happened since Magic Johnson in 1980.
Yeah, it's let's not talk about the Warriors with team building for the rest of the episode.
Well, a good example is someone like Memphis, who essentially in back-to-back drafts got Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant in there. That's their core. What have they done since then? They've only gone and added Desmond Bain. They accrued D'Anthony Melton in the exact opposite kind of trade to what the Mavericks got in the Seth Curry trade, where instead of trading away a player who was notably worse, they got the player back who was notably better. They literally got D'Anthony Melton just by savaging the Suns and sneaking into a Josh Jackson salary dump.
Yeah. All
they had to give up was Javon Carter.
And Josh Jackson was actually worth something, and now he's signed with Detroit, and he's had some illness.
He wasn't worth his $8 million cap hold, which is what we
but he wasn't just a dump. He's okay, here's a guy who'll just play a role, and then he signed with Detroit, and was playing a role.
It was a dump. Okay. Josh Jackson spent half that season with Memphis playing for the hustle. Memphis is a good example because they're a team that didn't have any superstars. They're a team that didn't have any super high quality role players. Obviously we know that they've got good role players, but no one's looking at Kyle Anderson being whoa, if only we could get Kyle Anderson, we're going to trade a first for him now.
Yeah.
All they did was just add young players through the draft through making smart trades.
They just didn't miss.
You're allowed to miss though. You just can't miss every single time.
Yeah.
That's the issue with.
Now we paused it.
If you miss every single time, you end up where the Mavs are now, with a team that's going to be really expensive and is not good enough to challenge in the way that they want to challenge. So imagine if they'd made one trade that they won. Or they'd made a really shrewd free agency signing. We're not talking about signing Kawhi Leonard. Imagine if they'd signed someone good, who is playing a good role for them. Like, they just have done none of that since taking Luka and Brunson.
Yeah.
Which we're now going on. That was 3 seasons ago.
Yeah,
so this is the 4th year of those two being on the team, and since then they've essentially lost every deal they've made. Well, you know, when you think about it through that lens, it's not entirely surprising that they're about to be capped out and about to be capped out at the 6th seed.
Well, to wrap up this point, I just want to ask you about one of the points you've written down here. But is there a Russ effect with Luka? What do you mean by that?
Well, remember like when Russ was in OKC and then Sabonis and Oladipo successively left and flourished with the ball in their hands more, and there was this discussion about this perceived Russ effect where he's so ball dominant and the only time you get the ball is when he's passed it out to you and you have to shoot. There's no space for someone like Sabonis to do anything other than be like a spaced out 3-point shooter. He couldn't experiment with being, you know, operating at the elbow as a bit of a pick and roll and a dribble handoff hub. Oladipo couldn't experiment with the ball in his hands because there wasn't room for it in the offense because they just said give it to Russ. Is there something about that with Luka? Because Luka really struggles to play off the ball.
Yeah.
He struggles in the playoffs. He struggles in the regular season. If he doesn't have the ball in his hands, he's dead weight. He doesn't cut. He doesn't run. He just stands still. And to make matters worse, he's not actually an amazing spot-up 3-point shooter. Like he's a better pull-up shooter than he is.
Which is A, pretty cool, but B, not great
Well,
for your
I mean,
team.
it's amazing. It's amazing when he's got the ball in his hands, and when he doesn't, it's like, well, his defender can essentially just stand there and face guard him, and you're playing 4-on-4.
But I think Jalen Brunson is living proof that that's not the case. Like,
no, but arguably though, like, is that the case? Because they are staggering them.
Like, if you put
and
Jalen
letting
Brunson
just run.
If you put Jalen Brunson on OKC right now, like, it's not like
no,
that.
but I mean like so they stagger Jalen Brunson with Luka and essentially play him as like the backup point guard when Luka's not on the court.
Yeah.
And then when he is on the court, the reason why those lineups work is because Brunson's versatile, not because Luka's versatile.
Yeah. But that's all you need.
Brunson's playing as a spot up, you know, off the ball cutter. Luka is still playing as the ball dominant point guard in those lineups. And is there a ceiling on that? Especially when you do give the ball to Brunson and Luka doesn't do anything. Because when Luka has the ball, Brunson's running around and he's shooting threes and he's cutting and whatever. If Luka does nothing when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, can you win like that? I think that there's something to that.
I think the ceiling is James Harden on the Rockets when they were at their peak, and that was also built perfectly around him. And I don't trust this Mavs front office to build that around Luka right now. And maybe Jalen Brunson isn't the sort of player that you want. Like, you know, do you want maybe Chris Paul, James Harden, or do you want James Harden with Patrick Beverley, like Ryan Anderson, and then just one rim rolling big? Like, is that what you want with Luka Doncic? And if you do, and if the ceiling is those James Harden Rocket teams, I think they deserve to win a title. It's just they unluckily went up against the Golden State Warriors, who are the greatest team of all time. You know,
Whoa!
They just unluckily ran into a beast every single time. I think.
Have you not heard about the 2020 to 2022 Phoenix Suns?
But do you think those Houston Rockets teams deserved a title? Like,
I mean, it doesn't really matter to me if they deserved a title or not. But those teams were championship contenders.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Pure bona fide championship contenders.
For 3 years, they were the second best team in the whole entire league.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
And like, if that's the ceiling with a James Harden team, the ceiling is a title then.
Yeah, the ceiling was a title, absolutely. But the ceiling with this team is not a title. The ceiling with the 2016.
But I'm just pushing back against your Russisms and calling it a James Hardenism for Luka.
Well, obviously, like. I don't mean this as like a criticism of Luka's ability to be the best player on a championship team, because I think that that's the case. I think that absolutely Luka can be the best player on a championship team. But I think I want my superstars to do something when they don't have the ball. I don't like seeing Luka standing, 35 feet away from the rim just doing nothing.
Complaining to the ref is what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't like that one bit. And B, I think that there potentially is something. Trevor Ariza, when he left Houston, those amazing Houston teams that you're talking about, he was like, yeah, it's not my kind of basketball.
Yeah.
Because the role players just get completely marginalized.
Yeah.
Because in the exact same way that Russ would hold the ball until there's 4 seconds left and then you'd have to shoot, that's what Harden would do. Harden's just better than Russ.
I quite frankly don't care.
Yeah, well, fair enough. That's one way to approach it. I just wonder whether there's a
like a
demotivating factor in that.
So in Game 7 with 20 seconds left, is PJ Tucker going to dive as hard as Draymond Green's going to dive?
No, in Game 1 with 3 quarters to go, is anyone going to do anything as hard? Because they're like, well, there's no fucking point in doing this.
He gets to rest on offense or something.
I'm not doing this so that I can maybe get the ball, or I'm not setting this screen so I can maybe flare out and shoot a 3. I'm doing this so that Luka can get switched onto someone smaller, and I'm doing this 100 times in a game, and I'm doing that for 100 games a season. Like, maybe if everyone... I don't know. I'm walking a fine line here. I'm not saying...
I know. I get what you mean.
I'm not saying, like, empower Tim Hardaway Jr. and let him run 20 pick and rolls a game.
That's what Jason Kidd tried to do. Like, they played 15 players one game because Luka apparently wanted to. So, like, I reckon the team hears this, and the team acknowledges that. Maybe don't play fucking Josh Green like 5 minutes a game, right? Maybe just hold on to that one. But I think it was really telling. And so Dallas lost to Orlando a couple of days ago, and today they lost to Oklahoma City in overtime. And the Mavs were up by 2 points. And the reason they got those 2 points is that, I can't remember who, but one OKC player fell on Luka's ankle. It wasn't malicious. He accidentally fell on the ankle. He was out for the play. So obviously 4v5. They just got a wide open layup. They were up by 2 points. And then they came down, and Josh Giddey had a beautiful pass to tie the game. So he was inbounding the ball next to where the coach stands, and he flung it to a cutting Kenrich Williams, who, like, Luka just wasn't worried about his guy who was on the opposite side of the court. Kenny Hustle got in behind him, caught it in midair, and laid it up to tie the game. And then Luka's like, shit, my bad. Like, obviously he wasn't paying attention. He was on the opposite side of the court from Josh Giddey. Why would his player get the ball? And I'm not saying that, like, I'll kill Luka for that, but just like, that's just what happened. Luka gets the ball. There's 8 seconds left, and he's dribbling down. He's going against Lou Dort, who's a great individual defender. Also, Lou Dort, 30 points today, just dueled against Luka, who had 40 and 10. And Luka's dribbling down 8 seconds, like between the legs, doing this. And there were 2 players in each corner, both just like nestled away. And like, 2 player one corner, 1 player in the other corner, and then one under the rim. And it was just like, no one thought anyone else was going to shoot the ball, so much so that the camera zoomed in a little to Luka. Like, the camera zoomed in so that the other 4 guys weren't in the camera. What happened? And he missed. Yeah. He dribbled, step back, hit the front rim. Yeah. It was so close to going in. But, like, does Luka just get better and become James Harden who makes those shots?
I just think that James Harden's taking that shot, Russ is taking that shot. LeBron probably is like, you know, the sort of player that's not
LeBron's like clutch passes.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying though. Like LeBron's a player who, when the shot's there, he'll take it. But with 15 seconds left in a tie game, like you don't like 100. You don't know what's going to happen. You know that there's going to be a good shot. Whereas with those dudes, all you know is that they're going to shoot it, which I think maybe has a damaging effect on the team overall, both in motivational terms for players who know that even if you cut, even if you screen, even if you do all the things that that are demanded of you, you might not get the ball. Also the opposite team. It's easier to plan. Like, obviously Luka's an absolute G.
Just put Lou Dort on.
But it's easier to plan when you know essentially that Luka's going to pass or shoot every single time.
So you only need to defend one pass away.
Yeah, and I don't know that I fully believe that, like, you know, the answer here is like de-emphasizing Luka slightly. I don't know that that's that's their best option.
Yeah,
but I think that it's an example of the limitations of
a heliocentric offense.
No, I hate that. It's become heliocentric has become like become so like smart guy NBA podcaster that it's now like okay we fucking get it. Get it.
Now stupid podcasters
Danny
are saying
LaRue,
it.
say it one more time.
Danny LaRue fucking started it, but
say it one more time.
Yeah, I remember at the start of the year the Zinger was like averaging 3.4 assists or something, and And Kevin O'Connor wrote an article being like, oh, you know, obviously you can just imagine these guys like, oh, European white dude, and he's a big man. Oh, he's a good passer.
Yeah.
And like he was actually doing a little bit of stuff out of the high post and low post, but now he's back down to 2 assists, which is very close to his career average. It's like, yeah, I think it all boils down to they wanted to get a second best player next to Luka. They thought it was the zinger. It hasn't been the zinger, and now they're kind of fucked for it. I think at the end of the day, that's it. Like, you can talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. and you can talk about Jalen Brunson's money, but they had a massive swing and they missed, and now they might not get another massive swing for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, you get it wrong. It's like, well, you're kind of in terms of on the court product, in terms of cap space, in terms of assets going out, like you're kind of screwed. But I think that's maybe a tad reductive because they have also done other things wrong.
Yeah, but I mean,
they have messed up in other ways that you mess up that big. You're not going from where they are now to being a 2 seed just because in a hypothetical world you do something else. You in a hypothetical world, if Porzingis is great, like they're not jumping up whatever. But the trades that we've talked about, the draft picks that we've talked about, like you lose every trade. You pay market value for your average role players, and then you don't bring any good draft picks in. Like those are all separate to the Porzingis trade. Those are all completely.
But like Seth Curry and Josh Richardson looked better when Porzingis is averaging 20 and 10 and 5 or something.
Well, Seth Curry might look better. Josh Richardson, I don't think he's ever going to look better.
Well, let's wrap this discussion up. My parting sentence is they took a massive swing and they missed on the zinger. What would be your parting sentence and looking forward with the Mavs?
If I can distill the last 30 minutes of discussion, of in-depth discussion down into one sentence, which seems unfair.
Have 2 sentences.
I would say take a step back, cop a bad season, retool, go again.
Yeah.
Because you go again, the world's your oyster.
Yeah.
You got cap space, you got draft picks, you got Luka, you got what couldn't we do?
I also just want to say that everyone's like, oh, unrestricted free agency is so close. Like obviously, this guy's on the timer as soon as his new contract starts, and it's like, what are we gonna do with Luka? We were all talking about that with Kat a couple of years ago, and it's like, oh, he's about to sign an extension, then he's on the clock. It's like, turns out he's just not that good. Like turns out Kat just isn't the number one. Maybe he's a number 2, and shut up a little bit.
Well, he's popping up in lots of all-star votes.
What?
When's that happen? When's that happening, by the way?
I was sort of hoping it would be happening by today.
Like, every day I wake up and I'm like, come on.
I want to see DeJounte Murray.
Give me it. Like, if DeJounte Murray makes it, I'll be disappointed.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because the team's terrible.
Team's below average.
Yeah.
Like, all right, how
many wins does Pop need?
24.
Nah, but like now?
24 minus 19. I don't know when the All-Star reserves come. I feel like fucking Jimmy P right now, just like Googling stuff and it's coming up with the wrong year. So, you would... I'm looking at this. This is an article by Dan Devine, and he's got Cat on his All-Star team.
Yeah, he does have Cat in there.
Have you read this already?
Yeah, I have. Dan Devine with the ringer. Anyway, we can move on. I'll move on. You can do whatever you want. So we'll skip to a little bit of news. Obviously, we're about a week away from the trade deadline, so we'll have more on this as it happens next week in a 4-man wave plus Marco, I believe. But for the moment, all we have is the Fishman, Jake Fisher, who's doing absolute yeoman's work. If there's an NBA trade rumor that's coming out at the moment, you just look at the tagline, it's Jake Fisher.
I watched this TikTok on the toilet before about this lady who found like a little like what are those like nectar birds, the ones with a long nose.
Yeah.
It was one of them, and it was like dying on the side of the road, and this lady picked it up and like revived it and took it to this like fucking what are they called, hummingbird. Hummingbird like revival center, but she was just like drip feeding it little bits of water on a straw, like putting her finger on the straw and then dripping it down this dude's beak. That's Jake Fisher to us right now.
Yeah,
just keeping us alive until next week.
I know you need something, so how about this? The Toronto Raptors have explored attaching a first-round pick to Goran Dragic. That's courtesy of the Fishman. So that's an interesting pivot from where we were in the off-season, because it was kind of like assumed that they would try and basically get a first-round pick back, because they seemed like a team that was maybe going to be just bad enough to like properly go in the tank for another year. Yeah. It turns out that through a little bit more than half the season, they're actually the 8th seed, and they're 3 games above 500. So the return that they might be getting for attaching a pick with Dragic is saying that if it's this year's pick, it's something like, let's say like it's 20, it's 18. 18 and Dragic, does that get you a player who could push you into the top 6 in the East? Like I think that's a really interesting trade configuration.
Well, the deal that I heard from that Zach Lowe pod was that they're actually talking about doing 18 Dragic and something else, whether it be Gary Trent or Precious Achiuwa, for Miles Turner.
Oh, that's too much for Miles Turner.
And I'm wearing this. Totally not. Miles Turner is really
Gary
good.
Trent.
No. So not
18.
No. Gary Trent's on his new contract.
Yeah.
18, Precious Achiuwa and Goran Dragic.
Precious Achiuwa kind of sucks. So
I think he's worth a first round pick.
Precious Achiuwa is like the big man patron saint of what number does it start with? Hold on, let me tell you what number it starts with.
Don't be so precious.
Yeah, 42.7% from the field, and he stands 6'8" tall. He's got a 40.
I'm 6'3".
45 effective field goal percentage. I reckon if I can be bothered going on to cleaning the glass for this.
Please don't spare me. I've got a family.
Come up with all the dark blues. If I was the Raptors and I could do Precious Achiuwa this year's first and Dragic for Turner, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I think,
but they didn't want to do it after his foot injury. They're a little bit scared off by the foot injury, and
they were scared off by a
Dallas.
6'11" dude who just broke his foot.
Actually, it was a fracture.
Yeah,
which means break. And so were Dallas. Dallas were also trying to get involved in Miles Turner.
Charlotte as well would be another team that might try and get involved.
We've been talking about Miles Turner and Sabonis trades for 3 years now, and this is the time one of them would happen.
Yeah.
And Miles Turner fucking breaks his
we
foot.
Literally, as long as this podcast has been going, we literally have been talking about it. I feel like in the first 2 months we were doing this podcast, we probably had a conversation like, man, you just got to break up the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
Sitting in the La Trobe University recording studio saying, man,
I haven't heard back about booking that. Fuck. Hey, if you're listening and you got... well, what do you think they can get for the 18th pick in Dragic?
Well, I think a more pressing question is like, what do they want? Because at the moment, their team is literally just like Fred VanVleet and then just arms.
Well, Siakam's playing really well.
No, that's what I'm saying though. But like, between like,
I think Fred VanVleet, Siakam, and arms. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm
actually, can I butt in?
Yeah.
Remember 2 weeks ago, Toronto said we want Jakob Poeltl. Do you remember that?
Jake Puddle.
So,
I do.
So what's Dragic 18 for Jake Puddle?
What are the Spurs? What are the Spurs doing then? Playing with no centre.
Cut him.
Drew Eubanks.
He's really good in 2K.
Is he?
Maybe Precious Achiuwa as well, and just cut Dragic.
Yeah.
But
buy him out.
I mean, like, Jake Puddle is like the darkest horse defensive player of the year candidate.
Jake Puddle, I think, is a genuinely good starting centre.
He is.
He just can't shoot a free throw to save his life.
I mean, like, he's like DeAndre Jordan with like no style.
He also doesn't quite fit in the same way that Turner doesn't quite fit. He doesn't quite fit the athletic running mold, because everyone in Toronto wants to run.
Yeah. But you don't need 5 guys, right?
Well, tell that to Charlotte. Jake Puddle could be a good one for Dragic. To be honest, the Spurs probably just keep him around. They're like, yeah, you need to. Although Dragic seems like the kind of guy who wouldn't play. If he did get bought out, there'd be like a bit of a big war that you can absolutely see. Like,
I will be so disappointed if we talk 2 weeks from now and Dragic has been traded to a team like the Spurs, got bought out. If he signs with the Lakers, I will be fuming. He would be
what
so
about
excited.
if he signs with the Lakers and then they bench Russ for him in the fourth quarter?
Oh, it'll be less fuming.
Yeah.
But I'm just like...
That'd be pretty funny.
He could be the best
That'd
buyout guy there is.
That'd be peak comedy. He could be the best buyout guy in a few years if his body's right, which no one knows because he hasn't played in half a season.
I say could because if Marc Gasol comes out of retirement, fucking Nemanja Bjelica is dead. Like, Marc Gasol is immediately on this Warriors roster.
Yeah, Marc Gasol giving you 8 good minutes a game.
Well, Kevon Looney at the moment is leading the league in offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
Also, can I say...
Total or per game?
Total. The Warriors... don't smile, you fuckhead. The Warriors rest... Andre Iguodala doesn't even play. I think he's a part-time player.
Yeah.
Steph Curry is resting because I think he actually injured himself while just ripping the heart out of Kevin Porter Jr. Klay Thompson obviously resting back-to-backs. Speaking of backs, Draymond Green out with a back injury. Kevon Looney cannot fucking buy a rest. He's played every game. And in these games where it's like, oh, Jordan Poole and Chris Chioza and Kevon Looney, he just keeps playing. They can't rest him for some reason.
The knee braces that he's wearing keep getting bigger.
For a guy who moves like him, who had some weird disease in some muscle 2 years ago, and the knee braces and the ankle braces, he's like a prime candidate for rest, and he's not doing it.
Yeah, you gotta manage those loads. You do. Bringing it back to the Raptors just quickly, I think that the question is, do you want to go big and look for like a pure center, or do you want to go small and look for like a combo guard? Do you want to go someone who can spell Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet, kind of a good shooter, better ball handler than Gary Trent? So you have 3 guards, because at the moment they've only really got 2, unless you're counting Malachi Flynn, which I'm not.
If there's a good combo guard out there, it'll cost more than the 18th pick in Dragic.
What about Eric Gordon?
Eric Gordon, I'll go on the pod right now and say he won't be traded.
Yeah,
I think he's getting paid like 2 years
we've
after
kind
this.
of danced around it this far, and I didn't want to say but
fuck yeah, say it.
The Phoenix Suns have been one of the teams that's been sniffing around Eric Gordon, which makes me distressed. That makes me distressed. So you saying that he's not going to get traded, I feel like you've put something cosmic into the universe that he is going to get traded.
I don't want you to trade for
the Suns. I don't want him to be traded either. Not to us anyway.
I don't want you to
I
trade
don't
for
want
him.
Eric Gordon's contract on the books.
I don't want Eric Gordon's contract in the NBA. If he gets bought out and they just pay him $70 million to not play a basketball game.
The biggest buyout in NBA history. Here you go. Yeah.
I like if I'm the Houston Rockets and Cleveland says, here's Ricky Rubio.
I'm sorry that you're the Houston Rockets.
and Cleveland says, here's Ricky Rubio and a second round pick, your second round pick. That pick's going to be in the 30s. That is amazing value for a guy who's 34 years old and getting paid as much as he is for next year as well.
I think it's 2 years. I think he's got 2 years left after this one.
That's so gross.
Yeah. Let me tell you.
Is he the last guy remaining from those James Harden teams?
Gotta be. He's got... Oh, Shawnee.
Oh, no.
So he's on 18 this year, and then he's got 19... Okay, so he's got 19 next year, and he's got 20 the year after that, but it's not fully guaranteed.
Well, when I was writing for the Knicks Wall, we did like a study predictions thing where you do like your usual predictions, but it was just Knicks. And then one of the questions like every writer had to answer was like, what's your bold prediction for the year? And my bold prediction was, because I didn't think the Knicks were going to make the playoffs, mine was that they're going to trade for Eric Gordon and get a first round pick in exchange for doing that, because at the time Houston had James Harden and they were going to try and win games. Obviously it didn't happen like that. But I was like, it's going to cost so much to get off Eric Gordon. He's getting paid so much for 4 years. And Houston could just try and New York could try and rehabilitate him. We're in the exact same situation as we were, but somehow it's worse. And he's got 1 year left in his contract.
He's so old. It's like, how are you still here, dude? Surely it's your time. Yeah, well, I sincerely hope that is not where Phoenix goes with the Saric, Smith, and a first round pick package.
And like Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, right?
Yeah.
If Mikal Bridges played for the Warriors, he'll be an all-star starter. Like
Yeah.
that's how good your backcourt is.
Yeah.
Where's Eric Gordon fit into that? Like, Cam Payne does everything you would want Eric Gordon to do, which is amazing. Like, and he's getting paid an absolute bargain bin contract. You should use your Dario Saric piece and Jalen Smith to get something in the front court.
To be honest, the Athletics' John Hollinger today, I was reading on where he had a fucking absolutely baller trade. I can't remember who it was for though.
That is,
It was Saric, Jalen Smith, 2024 first round pick, and Frank Kaminsky for someone like that. For someone that I was like, fuck yeah.
Daniel LaRue did a similar package for Jay Sean Tate.
Yeah, maybe it was Eric Gordon and Jay Sean Tate.
Eric Gordon and Jay Sean Tate.
Maybe I'm misremembering because I don't actually want Eric Gordon.
It's like trading for Iman Shumpert, but J.R. Smith ends up being better.
Yeah, J.R. Smith ends up actually being like an amazing player.
3-and-D wing.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm just going to control F this article for Kaminsky. That happens all the time. Okay. Oh, is Jalen Smith, Frank Kaminsky, Saric, and a pick for Norman Powell. I would do that. Here's the pitch. We trade for someone who's earning the same amount of money as Eric Gordon, who's
Much younger.
who's 8 years younger and better.
Yeah.
That's the pitch.
Yeah.
That how I sold you?
Yeah. I just don't know how I feel about Norman Powell.
Well, I know how I feel about Eric Gordon.
Yeah, and you feel better about Powell.
Yeah.
Let's just wrap this up with the final piece of news out coming from Dave McMiniman of ESPN that LeBron James won't return until swelling in his knee subsides. You've written here that he's already missed 4 games.
4 games with this injury.
With this injury, it's
Ask me what the Lakers' record is, Sean.
what's the Lakers' record?
So they're currently the 9 seed in the West with a 24-27 record.
A good win against Portland today.
Oh,
Portland
sick.
Obviously at full strength.
Sick win.
Yeah, it's pretty grim for the Lakers, but I don't care.
I wanted to include this because I just think that, you know, we've been like harping on this the whole season, but how fucking stupid are the blokes in the executive office here, including LeBron, for the conversation to have been, the number one selling point to have been, Russ will help take the burden off LeBron and he'll keep the offense afloat when LeBron sits. Brother, that's not what's happening. LeBron's played, I'd be willing to bet that LeBron's averaging more minutes per game than he has in the last yonks of seasons.
There was a report that Monty McNair was, quote, fuming.
It's always Monty McNair with you. Drinking from the fountain. You're like a little rat sipping from the little straw.
That he was fuming that because they had agreed to the Buddy Hield trade and then just turned around and go, oh, no, Russell Westbrook. This team would be so much better with Russell Westbrook on it.
LeBron is playing the most minutes he's played since 2017 this year.
That's great. That's great. He
Wait,
must be in such good form.
Whose team would be better with Russell Westbrook?
No. The Lakers would have been better if they did a Buddy Hield trade instead.
Yeah, and kept KCP. And
no, it would have been the same deal. So because Kuz wasn't as valuable as he is right now.
You get to keep one of KCP, Harrell, and Kuzma in that deal.
That's KCP then.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you keep KCP.
I like both sides so much better if they do that. Like the Kings with this Kuz and then Montrezl Harrell on a team trying to make the playoffs. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, he's already on a team trying to make the playoffs.
Sliding doors if Russ is still on the Wizards. If that trade happened, Russ stays on the Wizards. Damn.
And then they trade Beal for Ben Simmons. And then if you got Ben Simmons and Russell West.
I'm glad that we got this far before the first Ben Simmons mention. I'm sure his name will come up a lot on next week's episode, but I'm glad that we've stuck to one. We've stuck to one thus far.
I still like that John Collin trade.
Yeah, John Collins. Such a stupid joke, but it's really funny. Okay, this seems like a nice, tidy place for us to wrap up this week.
Yeah, good thing.
Just before we go, I'd like to beseech our listenership, our loyal listenership. Jump on the YouTube and check out the Brunson Film Room. Let us know what you think, because I think we could really have something here with with this, this little series, and Sean really did knock it out of the park. Also, jump on the website or our Facebook and have a look at Matt Parnell's perfect blend of the NBA and the NBL worlds. And also, tell a freaking friend. Tell a friend about this basketball podcast. Next time you're having a conversation with an acquaintance, a mate who you don't know that well, but it comes up that you both like basketball, drop it in there. Hey, like maybe you like this, or I was listening to this basketball podcast. Oh yeah, what's it called? Oh, it's the Deep to NBA podcast. How Deep to NBA? Yeah, available on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's seriously that easy.
So simple. Dante, I'll speak to you next week. Peace. We were over the moon when we first heard that the NBA was going to be televised on Australian free-to-air TV in the 2019-20 season. It didn't exactly go swimmingly, with the nasty cough halting the season and games getting cancelled left, right and centre, but it was a huge step and an exciting one for basketball fans all across the country.
Better yet, it wasn't a commercial channel cashing in on some basketball nerds like us. It was SBS, one of our public broadcasters. Unfortunately, the NBA wasn't the only thing SBS was pushing last season. They also ran advertisements from Sportsbet, Ladbrokes, Bet365, BetEasy, and Neds, some of the biggest sports betting companies in Australia.
In a one step forwards, two steps backwards move, SBS has dropped the ball here. As a public broadcaster, SBS plays a key role in providing relevant, culturally appropriate health information to local communities. The last thing SBS should be doing is offering a platform for gambling companies during the most financially unstable time in recent memory.
This past year, men aged 18 to 24 made up 79% of new gambling account holders, with increased median spending and frequency of bets. This is the last thing we should be spending our money on, given the financial uncertainty that comes with the pandemic. During COVID lockdowns, wagering companies spent more money on advertising and incentives to gamble, and it worked. SBS needs to hear from viewers that gambling ad revenue isn't worth the harm it causes. Call on the SBS chair, George Savitas, to put community health ahead of gambling revenue by signing the petition at www.endgamblingads.org.au/get gambling off SBS with hyphens in between.